Hello guys and welcome to another episode of Grease Garage where we make them bigger and better, and today we are doing the rear mounts on this barrel conversion Valiant. Yeah, barrel the world! So we're not even going to muck around, we're going to get straight into it. First thing we need to do is jack this car up so we can see what needs to be changed to get this engine in the right spot. So the problem that we're having right now is this engine needs to go down. And there's one problem. Chrysler, in their wisdom, decide to put Mount Everest in their sway bar. Now that might not be a big issue, but with this engine, the oil pickup actually loops through the front and goes to the back. So there is literally a bee's male parts gap between them two. So how we're going to fix this is we're going to take the sway bar off for now, and I think we'll be able to actually flip it. And if that's not the case, we'll actually get a custom one made up. But that is the first thing we're going to do. The second thing that we need to do is remove the standard engine mount, and then we're going to go to the back and we're going to take out that steering rod, so we can get this engine all the way down. And then finally, we might be able to mount up that gearbox. Time will tell. As you can hear, I'm using the old rattle gun to undo the left and right sway bar links. And then I move to the coupling bushes at the front. It always surprises me how easy these old rusted nuts and bolts come apart. Once I pull the sway bar out, I move to the right side of the vehicle and try to undo the front wheel. It puts up a fight, but it's nothing a 6G rod and some elbow grease can't fix. Now that the wheel is off, it exposes the tie rod end, and as you can see, it is covered in 40 years of grease and dirt. Not the end of the world though. With some degreaser, a rag, a screwdriver, I clean it up enough to pull the lock pin out with ease. The next mission is to undo the tie rod end, and once I remove the brake caliper, the tie rod end nut comes off with a rattle, and then the fun starts. So there's 3 ways to undo a tie rod end. The correct way, the other way, and the I'm not asking anymore. But don't worry, all these parts are still available from Hemi Performance in Australia and needed to be replaced anyway. No harm done. Now that the tie rod end is disconnected, I focus on rolling off the idler arm, nut and bolt, and push it out of the way. Which means I can now lower the engine down to where I want it. So now that the sway bar's gone, I've removed the power steering rack out of the way. We've got this engine lined up, ready to go. I've used the engine crane, I've used some of the jack stands, and I've really taken my time to make sure it's as perfect as I can get it. The level of the engine, I'm not too worried about. It just needs to be in the ballpark. This still needs to go down half an inch. But of course we're focusing on the back bracket, that's where it needs to be perfect. So, talking about the back bracket, this is the standard Ford one. And this is the standard Valiant one. And as you can see, these are very, very different brackets and mounting points. So, what most people would probably do is start from scratch and try and make a whole new bracket, but that's not what I'm going to do. What I want to do to save myself some time is I'm going to cut down the factory Ford one and modify it to fit the Valiant frame. You are really going to want to watch what I do next. So I drop the Ford mount into the bandsaw and start cutting off the ends. The idea of this is that we are left with a strong base to weld onto. Next, I get some scrap metal and the factory Valiant mount and start sizing up the piece that I will need. I then use some paint to get a rough idea where the holes are. I use a level to get the sheet metal right in the drill press as I want the holes to be straight as possible. The drill bit I'm using is a 13mm drill bit, and I'm using the drill press on a medium speed. Once I've drilled the first hole, I use the OEM bolts to bolt the OEM bracket to the sheet metal. I then use the vice grips on the other end so there's no movement. Once I finish, I then bolt the second hole up to the sheet metal as well. So all that is left to do is drill the rest of the mounting holes out. Okay, so the holes are drilled, but we need to figure out a shape that's going to work. I hop underneath the car and use the tri-square to see the distance from the Falcon mount to the Valiant factory mounting points. I then use the bandsaw and an angle grinder to cut out the shape. Notice I've drilled holes where the 2 points meet. It might be an all wise tell, but it's meant to help stop stress cracks in the aluminium from movement, just in case you're wondering. At this point, I hop underneath the car to test fit and see if it was a waste of time. Success! It fits. I then take it back out, find the center using the original Valiant bracket, hop back under the car, bolt it back up, and use a screwdriver to mask around the sheet metal where the forward mount is pressed. I then take them both out, and it's time to weld. So before we start welding, we're going to use this center line, and we're going to use this bracket, and now we can actually fine adjust it to make sure that we get that gearbox as dead straight as possible. Now, if I actually have a look at it, I can already tell that was about 5mm out. So that's why it's important to do center lines. Before I weld it though, I'm going to get this on the sander and make this as flat as possible. Got to drill some holes in this, and we're going to weld it up. This is not the final shape of it, of course. We will clean it up and we're going to box this, but this is going to get us to the point where we can start doing the engine mounts. Keep watching. Just like most things in life, there are two ways of doing this. One, you can just use a sander and try and get it as straight as you can, like I am doing here. Or, the preferred way, is using a lathe. Now, a lathe will always give you a true straight edge. But, understandably, not everyone has a lathe, so that's why I'm showing you the two ways of doing it. I find a level area where I can lay the bracket and the sheet metal down so I can do 2 tack welds, one on each side. I then put it in the vise and squeeze the metals together while I lay down a bead. This way I know that there's going to be absolutely no movement at all. Alright, so as you see, we're getting things done. So this bracket is going to be done for now. It's not finished. We've still got to obviously clean up the design a little bit. We're not going to leave it a big box. And we're also going to box it in. So we'll put another side here, and then we'll box all around it so it looks as factory as possible. I'll probably also then get sandblasted so it gives it that factory look. So that's going to be done. The next thing we got to do is the engine mounts. So the engine actually has to come out now for this. We're going to pull the engine out. We're going to cut the factory ones out of there. We're going to cut a little bit out of the K-frame for the oil pickup. And then we're going to slide it back in and get those mounted up next. So, we're getting things done. We're getting things done. Now, looking at the engine mounts, there is no way I can reuse them for the Barra. So my mission is to make them disappear. All I got is a grinder. So that's what I'm using. I start with a thin cutting disc to cut large pieces out, and then using a hammer to break the last little bit of weld. I then move on to a grinding disc to flatten down the metal bits that are standing up, and to finish off I then use a 40 grit sanding disc to smooth it all out, ready for welding. And this is the end product after 3 hours of grinding. Looking pretty mint. Alright, so I've degreased the whole engine bay, I've wiped it all down, and I've used multi-purpose thinners on the metal bits so they're ready to weld. The reason why I just quickly gave this a clean is because obviously when you're grinding you're putting metal everywhere, and if you leave it, it will rust. And this doesn't need any help rusting, so you want to try and keep it as good as possible and as clean as possible. So we've done that quick little clean, and that should be good. So, it's time to put the engine back in. So the engine is in, the back mount is working perfectly, but we have run out of time. I mean, we've been spending, well, I've been spending 3 days on this, and I was hoping to be a little bit further than I am, but I've just run out of time. So, we'll leave the front mounts for the next episode, and if you do like what you're watching, please subscribe, share to your mates. We make no money out of this, so your support, just your views, that's more than enough for me, and gives me confidence to keep doing these things because I can see that you guys are actually enjoying it. So on the next episode for the Valiant, we'll do the front, and we might start, we'll do the front and we'll do this sump. We've got to cut that sump up and modify the sump for the steering arm. So, you're going to want to watch that for the next episode of Grease Garage. Catch you later.